realizing that you don't have these options and you don't think that you have access, we won't be able to address individuals' access during this meeting, but you can send us a message at HMIS help@MDHI, and we can help figure out who at your agency has the data analysis access, or if that needs to be switched or something like that. Because like I said, only one person per agency will have this tool since there are a limited number of licenses. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. You can feel free to pull up HMIS in your own browser and follow along. All right, can everybody see my screen? Perfect. So we're going to be doing this tutorial in the HMIS training agency because we don't want to be pulling in client private information from real clients, and all of these are fake clients, so it's safe to use. So when you first start out, always make sure that you're logged into the agency that you have data analysis access for. That's generally going to be your main agency. You can just double check by looking under your name here. And then we're going to click on the launcher waffle in the top right corner. And then we're going to select reports. So that's going to take us to this report library, which has all of my built-in reports, which we went over in the last training. But if you have data analysis access, you're going to have two extra tabs up here at the top, one that says Explore and one that says Data Analysis. If we click on Explore, this is where we're actually going to go to create our new custom reports. And if we click on Data Analysis, that's where our custom reports are going to be saved. So we can rerun them, we can download them, we can make edits to them. And you'll see there's a couple different folders here under data analysis. The one that has the same name as your agency, so I'm logged in as MDHI Training Agency. The one that has the same name as your agency is going to be the one where your reports are saved to. You'll also notice there's a few other options here. And I'm going to show you really quick in the live site because this is a little different than the training site. So in the live site, you'll see there's some options here under built-in reports. The one that will probably be useful for you is going to be this data quality dashboard. And a dashboard is just when multiple reports or charts are put together on one page, but this can go further than the data quality built-in report that you have in this reporting library. So this may be helpful to you. And you'll also notice under this Colorado HMIS report section, there's the DOH TSS reports. So this is only going to be relevant for a few programs, but if you've been told to run one of these and you can't find them, they're here in the Colorado HMIS reports down here, but you have to have data analysis access again to get those. But if you haven't heard of those, don't worry about them. Again, that's only for specific programs. All right, let's go back to our training site. And I'm going to go here to explore. So we're going to start off by building a report. So we have different models here. And the different models are going to bring in different types of data. 99% of the time, you're going to be using this HMIS performance model. So that's the one that I am going to show you today. And this is going to be the most robust. It's the one that has probably what you're looking for because it's going to include enrollment information. It's going to have client information. It's going to have program information. It's going to have services information. There are so many things in here. And you may say, well, I see these other models, like client model and services model. Wouldn't I want to run those instead? Generally, you're going to be able to do the same things with those models with HMIS performance, but you're going to have even more options. So that's why I suggest starting here. Just one thing to note though is for the client data to populate into the HMIS performance model, they have to have an enrollment in one of your programs. So it's not going to bring in client information for other clients that haven't had an enrollment in your programs. We're not going to go over each of these today, but there is a resource here that I'm going to link in our Zendesk that has little overviews of each of the models here. And there's also going to be a whole page that goes really in depth on what each model does and the difference between them. Okay, let's go back. One other one I'd like to quickly point out here is this data quality model. So if you're trying to dig deeper into your agency's data quality and the data entry into HMIS, this one is going to be great. You can go beyond like what you see in the built-in report data quality. So let's go ahead and get started with this HMIS performance. So to start a new report, we're going to click open. And that's going to take us to the data analysis tool. And like I said in the beginning, this tool is also called Looker. So sometimes we'll refer to this as Looker. Okay, so let's go over the layout real quick. We have up at the top, it'll remind you which model you chose. We have the HMIS performance model. There will even be a little description here. And then on this left side is going to be all of our data fields that we can add to our report. And on the right side is where a report is going to be built. This is where the data is going to populate once it's added. If I click up here on visualization, this is where we're going to have the option to make our charts or graphs. And if I click up here on filters, this is where I'm going to be able to add filters, which are going to determine what data, how the data in the report is narrowed down. Some people say it's how the data is sliced and diced is the terminology you'll see a lot of people use, but it's basically the rules for what data is going to go into the report. You'll see there's already a filter that's been added here, and that's because this HMIS performance model is based off of enrollments. So there's always going to be this enrollment reporting period filter because they want to know like what's the date range that you're going to be using here for pulling in this enrollment information. If you are trying to do like a historical report and you don't care about the date range, it doesn't matter like when the enrollment was, you can always change this right here. And I can change this from picking like a range or a time, and I can just put is any time. So if I don't care about that, what time the enrollments need to come from, I can just set this to is any time here. Now let's look at some of our fields. So fields are going to be the data points in HMIS. So let's start here with clients because this is one we're going to use a lot. So a really common one that we're going to be using here, you scroll down, is the unique identifier. And when I click on that, see how it populated over here on the right side in the data table? So to add something to your report, all you have to do is click on it. If I want to get rid of it, I can simply click it again, and now it's gone. But I'm going to put this one back to show you what it is. So the client unique identifier is going to be the ID. Oops. Wrong tab. Okay, it's going to be the ID that is used to identify the client. I'm pointing this out because you'll see here under this client table, there's also a field here that says client ID. These two are not actually the same. I'll run it really quick so I can show you. Let's bring in some real data. So you see, this is the ones that we're used to, the combination of numbers and letters, whereas this client ID is this only numbers and it starts with a 3, and we never really see those. So I just wanted to clear that up. That can cause some confusion when starting to build reports. So we're never going to use the client ID, and we're almost always going to use this unique identifier here. Okay, so let's go back to looking at our fields. So you'll notice here, there are these ones that are in black text, and then there's these ones down here that are in orange text. If you're reading any of the BitFocus articles, you'll notice they'll use the words dimensions versus measures. These ones in the black text are what are considered to be dimensions. So those are going to be data points coming directly from HMIS. And the ones in the orange are going to be measures. So those are calculated from the dimensions. So average age is a measure because that is the average calculation, and that is made from averaging out the current age of your clients. So these are just dimensions that have had calculations done to them, but those can be super, super helpful. So this client table is also where you're going to find client demographic information, such as gender, race and ethnicity, veteran status. I'm going to close this table, and you'll see now there's a 1 here. That's because we added it to our report. So if you can't remember which of these tables you added fields from, this will remind you right here. You can also click in use, and that's going to show you the ones that you have added on your data set. Let's check out a few more tables before we build a report. So you're also going to be using this enrollments table probably. So this is going to look at enrollment level information. So you can see things like how many days the client has been in the project. You can pull in this enrollment ID, which I'll show you later. This is really helpful. It's going to have some drill down capabilities. You can pull in the project start date, the project exit date from here. And then there's also some helpful measures like count if you're trying to see how many enrollments you've had in the program, or your average days. So average days of enrollment of clients in your program. Another table you'll be using a lot here is the entry screen. So this information is going to come from the client's actual enrollment page. So you know when I ask those questions, like, does the client have any disabilities? Those are going to be listed here. Does the client have health insurance? And you'll see there's so many of these. Some of them are old. These are retired fields. So if you don't recognize them, don't worry about it. You're not going to be using all of these different fields. You can also look at the user who created the enrollment and the user who updated the enrollment last. So this one's going to be really helpful for those enrollment questions you're trying to answer. And then another table you'll use a lot is this programs table. So if you're trying to look at program level information, you can get the names of your programs, when they started, when they ended. You can also use this. This is really helpful for filtering down your reports. So when I'm trying to set the rules for what data is going to be in my report, let's say I want to add this name filter, because let's say I have 5 programs, but I only want to look at data from one of them. I can use this as a filter. So I'll click here. There's this little filter icon. It looks like the little descending bars. And when I click there, now it's going to be up here in this filters category. And I can set that to look at just clients from a certain program. So let's say I want to look at clients in this program. Now when I run my report, let's bring our data table back. Now it's going to reduce my list to only clients who are in this program. So that's why you may be using this one here a lot. And then there's 2 more that I would like to show you. Is we have this services field. So if you're trying to do a report on the amount of services that your clients received, or even a client level report to see which specific services that you received, this one's going to be really helpful. You can add name here, which is going to show you the type of the service they received, the service added date, so when the service was added, service item name. If you break down your services into like smaller categories, this is what you'll use. So like if you have case management is the larger service, but then you have like housing search is an offshoot of case management, and like job placement is an offshoot, that's going to be the service item name here. So this is going to be really helpful for building reports, determining what kind of services were utilized by your program. And then the last table here that you'll probably be using a lot is this update/exit screen. And the reason it says update/exit screen is because it's going to pull data from either the client's exit, or if the client doesn't have an exit, it's going to pull data from the last update. So that could be from the client's status assessment update, or if the client hasn't had any updates, it will try to pull from the enrollment screen, which won't always work. So sometimes this will just bring in null data, just zeros for, like, let's say you have a client that hasn't exited and you're putting the destination field in here, then it's just going to show up as a zero. So this is going to also have information from when they exited about things like the health insurance, if they still had health insurance when they exited, the income amount that they had when they exited the program, and all those other fields on the exit page. So that's just a brief overview of some of the fields that you have available to you. If you don't remember like which section something's in, you can always use this search bar up here at the top when looking for a field as well. So I'm going to clear out some of these changes that we made. Okay, let's remove this, and let's remove this as well, because we're going to build one from scratch. All right. So we received this data request. We're being asked to create a report on clients who moved into housing in our rapid rehousing program in the last 6 months. This report needs to include the client's names, the demographics, and contact information for the client. So we're going to build this report together because this is going to be a good like base report that you can build off of for your own reporting needs. Okay, so let's start with the data table first. We need to be including the client names, the client demographics, and the client contact information. So I'm going to go over here on the left side to my data fields. I'm going to select client. Let's start with the names. I have a few options. I can put the client's full name, or they also split it up here by last name and first name. I'm going to bring it in as 2 separate fields. So I'm going to add my first name by clicking on it. And now I'm going to add my last name. But you know what? I actually want my report to start with the last name and not the first name. No problem. All I can have to do is drag and drop. So I'm going to click here on this field, client last name, and now I'm going to drag it over to the left side. So we just reordered that right there. And then we also needed client demographics, which I remember are in this client table. So I want to add the age. So I'm going to add current age of my clients. I also want to add gender. And then I also want to add race and ethnicity. Now we have a few options here that I'm going to show you the differences. So I'm going to add this field that just says race and ethnicity. And then I'm also going to add this one that says race and ethnicity all, so I can show you the difference. I'm going to click run. So let's just see like what data is being pulled in so far. And the more data that is in the table, the longer it can take. All right. So I'm seeing here, I've got the last name. And again, these are fake clients, so that's why the names look wonky. First name, age, gender, race, ethnicity. Okay, let's look at the difference between these. So see under client's race and ethnicity, this right here says multiracial. But when I look at client's race and ethnicity all, this same client now has multiple options selected. When you do the regular race and ethnicity field, it's going to take the clients who selected multiple options and it's going to categorize them as multiracial. If you don't want that and you want to just see what are the multiple options that they selected, you'll run this one here that has race and ethnicity all, because it's going to show you all the selections I'll make it a little bigger for this. It's going to show you all of the selections separated by a semicolon instead. Okay, so I think I want this all one, so I'm going to go ahead and remove this one here. But for this demographics report, I remember they also asked me to include specifically if the clients identify as Hispanic, Latino, Latina. So I could just filter down by that, or I can go here on the left back to our fields, race and ethnicity multiple, and this is going to break it down by option type and then give me a yes, no value instead. So I'll show you what I mean. So let's add Hispanic, Latino, Latina to our data set. And now let's click run. All right. So now we can see we have a yes, no value for if the client identifies as Hispanic, Latino, Latina. So that could be really useful for our report. So I've got the demographic information that I'm looking for here. So what else did we have in our requests? They wanted client names, demographics, and contact information. So if you're looking for contact information for the client, it's actually going to be in this separate table here called client contacts. So I want to bring in their email, and I also want to bring in their phone. I'll bring in phone 1 and phone 2 because that's their primary and their secondary phone number. So I'm just going to click on all 3 of these. Sometimes this can go a little slow here. Okay, and now let's just double check, scroll over, and we have these new data fields. And the data is not actually going to show up until you click run, which is why it has these question marks here. So that was the entire data set I needed, but if we remember, this report is only supposed to be for clients who move into housing in our rapid rehousing program in the last 6 months. So we need to add filters to filter down this data here, because right now our data set, it's just bringing in all of the clients from any time. So let's start adding our filters. All right, so the time that we're looking at is going to be in the last 6 months. So I could either set a range for the past 6 months, or I can just use this right here that says in the last and modify this to months. Change this to 6. So now I'll just show you once you start adding filters, it's going to change the output. Okay, so now the list it's still really big, but it's getting a little bit smaller this time. And you'll see right here it says row limit reached. This row limit is set to 500. The maximum that you could set it to is 5,000. And again, rows is this up and down here. So this is the rows here. So you can only have 500 on this report, maximum 5,000. But if you have more than that, it's okay. You can still download data past 5,000 rows. It just won't show up on the web page. Okay, so we filtered down this report to the last 6 months, but we want to see clients who've had move-in dates in the last 6 months. So let's add that as a filter. Now let's say I don't remember where that one is, so let's use our find a field search feature up here. And I'm looking for household move-in date. So I don't want it coming from the client's assessment. I don't want that from the current living situation. I want to know from the enrollment. So here's the household move-in date. And I'm going to add this as a filter. And I'm also going to set this to in the last 6 months. Perfect. And you know what? I want to add this move-in date to the report. So I'm just going to click that. and that's going to add it to the data set. Okay, and then we need one more filter because we want move-in dates from our rapid rehousing program specifically. So I'm going to go down here to the program table, and I'm going to find program name, and I'm going to use this name as a filter. Okay, so now I'm going to set that for a rapid rehousing program. And now we have all of the appropriate filters. So we're only bringing in clients in this rapid rehousing program who have a move-in date in the last 6 months. So now I'm going to click run. And this is going to filter down our data. All right. So now you see that little warning went away because now we only have 16 rows. We have a much smaller, much more manageable list here. I can scroll over to the side and I can see, okay, these are all the fields I've added. I can double check things. I just wanted clients from Rapid Rehousing. Let me just do a quick visual check. All of these clients are from this program. I can do a visual check on, okay, are the household move-in dates within the past 6 months? Perfect. This is what I was looking for. But there's one more field I want to show you that's important to add. If we go up here to enrollments and we select enrollment ID, this is going to give us some cool drill down capabilities. So again, I'm going to have to click run because it doesn't pull in the new data fields until you select run. Okay. So for this enrollment ID, when I click on this number, it's going to pop up with some different links here. The first link, if I click on that, it's going to take me directly to that client's enrollment, which is really helpful. If I notice there were any errors with the enrollment, something didn't look right, I can directly go to that client's enrollment and make any adjustments or double check any information. You also, from the enrollment ID, if you click on the second link, it's going to take you immediately to their profile page. So not to the enrollment this time, just to the client's profile page. So that's why I like to add this one in reports because it just gives you that ease of checking on enrollments and client profiles. Okay, now say this data set we actually want to download for Excel. Let's say that's how it was requested. So we've got this complete. Now, what are we going to do? First, you want to save it. Come up here and click Save Look. You can overwrite previous looks here. And by the way, look is just what they call a report because the software is called Looker. So you're like, why is everything called a look? It just means report. So I'm going to click New Look. And I'm going to say this is our data report, clients housed past 6 months. I'm going to click Save. And now if you remember from the beginning of the training, this is going to be saved in the data analysis section. So we'll click Reports. We'll select Data Analysis. Then we're going to find the table that has the name of our agency. And here we go, the data report for clients housed in the past 6 months. That's the one we just created. So I'll click Run here. And now I can access my report. And remember, we wanted to save this as an Excel file. So to do that, we're going to click on this little gear icon on the right side of the screen. All right, so you'll have the option to save. And then you'll click, download. So when you click download, you'll have the option of how you want to download the report. We're going to do Excel here, but you also can do a CSV file. If you're doing like a chart or a graph, you might want to do the PMG, which is the visualization, or the chart or the graph. Rename this. Okay. And then it's going to ask, do you want the visualizations options applied or as displayed in the data table? So what does that mean? Let me show you really quick. This is the visualization table. This is where you can change things into charts or graphs. But because we're just doing a data set here for Excel, we're not interested in the visualization. We're just going to pull this data table. So that's what that's asking. It's, do you want the visualization or do you want what's coming down here from the data table? So I would have chose as displayed in the data table. You can choose if you want formatted or unformatted. So that'll be rounding, special characters. I usually just click unformatted here. And then this last selection is going to ask you if you want to download the current result table or all results. So remember when we hit that row limit and it was like warning and there was the yellow banner that says you have too many rows? And I said, that's okay if you have too many rows, you can still download the results. That's what you would select here. So if you had too many rows that can show up in the HMIS like interface here on the web page, you'll just click all results to download all of that data. But ours only had 16 rows here. So I'm just going to click current results. You can also customize that as well if you want like a certain range. And then I'll click download. And once I do that, you'll see it go up into my little downloads file up here, and I can open this up into Excel. I'll pull it up to show you. All right. So this is the data table that we just created. Let me make it a little bigger. So this is exactly the same thing that we just made, and now it's awesome because you can use this to make pivot tables. If you prefer making visualizations in Excel, you can do that from here. I'll close that out. All right, so I'm going to pause here for a second. We're going to move on to our second example of making a chart or a graph, but I wanted to see if there were any questions so far.
Yes, Olive. I wanted to ask, I'm sorry, I was kind of moving around when you first started,
Yeah, no
and
problem.
I didn't get to hear what you said about how many people could access this per agency.
Yeah, so currently, due to limited licenses, we can only have one person who has data analysis access per agency.
Okay.
Um, and if you like are wondering who in your agency has that, just feel free to send us a message at hmishelp@mdhi.org, and we can figure out who at your agency has that. And also, if there's any reason that it needs to be switched, we could do that as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started with making a visualization. We're going to make a simple chart here. So let's look back at the data requests that we have to fulfill. We need to see the number of enrollments in each emergency shelter program for the year of 2023. So this is a little different. So for our first report, we were looking at client level information. But for this one, we're going to be looking at program level information. However, because we're using the HMIS performance model, we can do both things in here. We don't even have to switch models. So I opened up a new blank slate by going to this Explore tab here. And the most important thing when you get started, if you're going to do a visualization in here, is start simple. Don't start adding in a bunch of fields because it will get really confusing really fast. Remember, if you're doing a chart or something like that, generally just start with like 2 data fields down here in the data table. So first we want to bring in programs because we want to see enrollment number per program. So I'm going to go down here to the program table. And I'm going to bring in the names of my programs. And then I also need to see the count of enrollments. So let's go to the enrollment table. And let's see if that is a pre-made measure that we already have. Yes, we have count here of enrollments. I can click on the little info button, and sometimes that will let you know more about the field. Sometimes it's not helpful, but it's always good to check. So this is going to be the number of enrollments. That's exactly what we're looking for. So I'm going to just click on that. Because again, when you click on it, that's all you have to do to add it to your data table. And like I said, start simple with the graphs. So we're going to leave it here for now. And let's just start bringing into some data to see what we have. Okay. So I'm seeing all of these different program names. And this is one different thing in the training site is it's going to be able to bring in information from different agencies. But when you're in the live site, you're only going to see stuff from your own agency. So don't worry about that. Okay, so I'm seeing all my different programs and I'm seeing all of their enrollment counts. But what was our prompt again? We just wanted to see the emergency shelter programs for 2023. Okay, so we're going to need to do some filters to get to change this list. So first, let's do our enrollment period filter. So we are looking for the 2023. So we can either set this to a range and set it from January till the end of December in 2023, or there's this nice little feature and you can just put is in the year of 2023. So now when I run this, it's just going to be looking at programs who have enrollments in 2023. So it's going to change our list here. But we didn't want all programs. We just want emergency shelter programs. So there's another cool field you can use. If we go down to our program table, we can use this right here, which is called the project type code. We're going to use this as a filter so that we can just look at one specific type of program. Okay, so when you just click here, it's going to show you the different types of programs. And we're just interested in emergency shelter. There are two different types of emergency shelter depending on how they're set up in the program. I think for this report, I want to bring both. So first I'm going to select my entry exit. And then I'm going to select my night by night emergency shelters. So now when I run this, we're going to just get the data for the amount of enrollments in programs that are classified as emergency shelters from 2023. All right, this is now the data that we are looking for. And these numbers are going to be really small again, because this is a training site. But now we're ready to get started with the visualization. We have the data built. So we're going to click here on visualization, and we need to make a chart. And look at that. It's almost completely done for us, which is really nice. So that's why I say start simple, because Looker is going to analyze the data and determine what makes sense, where things should go on the chart. So if you start adding a bunch of fields, these aren't going to look accurate or look like probably what you're going for. For this one, let's look at a couple different options. We could do a column chart. We could do a bar chart. Scatterplot wouldn't really make sense for this one. I mean, you could if you'd like to. There's also line charts, area chart, which is similar to a line chart, but like filled in. There's pie charts. And then this is for locations. We won't get into that for now. But I'm going to do a bar chart. So I'm going to go back to bar chart. And now I can edit my chart. So to edit how this looks, And I do see a question in the chat. I'll get to that in just a few minutes here. Okay, so we're going to click edit here. So let's say, what do I want to change about this chart? I want to change the color. I want to change the color. This doesn't really go with our color scheme here. So where could I do that? Let's just search around. Oh, here we go. Palette. So there's some different options to choose from. Some of these are going to be pretty similar. Oh, that's eye-catching. Let's go with that. And then there's a lot of options here that you might not use, honestly. It can get really detailed. An important one that you probably will use is you're going to want to change the name of these axes. So I want to change this. So instead of saying, let's look at our x-axis here, I don't want this to say just enrollments. I want it to say number of enrollments. So, oh, sorry. I meant the y-axis. Apologies. So I want this to say number of enrollments. Okay. And then I want the other side, instead of just saying name, I want that to say program name. All right, so now we've customized our chart. Just exit out of here. So now I can see number of enrollments and then the different program name. One other thing to check on here is if you click on the bar, it's going to give you a drill down of the clients that make up this number. So I can see who were these enrollments in this program. And again, this pulls in the enrollment ID, so I can go even further here. And I can click here and I can go directly to that client's program enrollment. I don't know why we just got a 403 error, but generally that will take you to their program enrollment. And then the same thing for this, you'll save it up here and it's going to save in the exact same spot as your other type of reports. Or you can immediately download if you're never going to use this again and you don't want to save it. You can immediately go to download. And because it's we're downloading the visualization, maybe I want to do a PNG because it's an image. That'll just take away all your options. Keep it super simple here. You'll just have to name it. And that's how you can get a nice visualization. And I saw we had a question in the chat that says, this is the total number of people enrolled. Can you narrow it down to show the number of households? Yes. So let's look at that. So right now we have the enrollments count. I think there's actually a few different ways that you can do this, but let's check our enrollments table first. So we just have count here for enrollments. Let me see if there's one under the entry screen. So we do have a count of households measured here. So that would be one option. So we could do a count of households served instead of enrollments count. Or another option is we could leave it the way it is, and we could just narrow it down to head of households, because each household is only going to have one head of household. So if we filter this down to head of household, it's actually just going to show us how many households are in the program. So let's filter it down to head of household. Let's see. We're going to pull this from the entry screen. So we'll add this as a filter. Is the enrollment the head of household? Go back up here to the filters. It's getting really small now. Maybe we should close that for a second. Okay, and is the enrollment the head of household? Yes, they are. So we're only going to bringing in the number of head of households. This might not change it, because I don't know if in the data site or in the training site, if people have been entering families. Oh yeah, they have been. So now this has reduced it to a smaller number because we're just looking at the head of household here. So we're just seeing a count of how many households that we have instead of the individual amount of enrollments that are in the program. And the great thing is, you can make these little switches whenever you want, because when you save your look here and you go back to access it, you can continue to edit it. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. So this is going to be our households served 2023 emergency shelters. I'm going to save that right here. And now let's go check that out in our data analysis section. So I'm going to click reports. I'm going to click data analysis. Go down here to my agencies folder. And we just did household served 2023. So I'm going to run this again. And now I'm going to be able to make whatever adjustments that I need to it. So once you make the report, you can continue to edit it. It's not just a static thing that always has to stay the way that it is. So you can update, if you wanted to update the time period on this, if you wanted to update what programs are involved in this, maybe you don't just want head of household. These are things that you can easily change so that you can customize your report to how you need it. Come over here, download it, and just keep doing iterations of the same thing. So this is going to be really, really helpful because I did pull up, we do a lot of custom data requests. You may have seen this form before, the MDHI custom data request form. And some of these data requests, like you will actually be able to pull yourself. Not that you have to. You can still ask us like if you need help with something, but if you would like to, you can come to this data analysis tool and start pulling some of these custom reports yourself or start trying to play around with it. So it's nice. It just gives you a little bit more agency and control like over your data, gives you those nice visualizations and also the option to create custom data sets. So that was covering everything that I wanted to show you for the basics. So before we close out here, I just wanted to see if there were any further questions. And Laura just put in the chat a link to that custom data request form. So yeah, if you are trying to figure out like a custom report and you're like, this is too much, I can't figure this out, I need some assistance, just fill out one of these custom data request forms and we can help you with that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stop recording then.